I guess the question is got to be, is Silicon Valley actually posing an alternative to that larger structure where you have a fusion of financial and sort of security?
No, not really. But I don't think. But I would argue that that's again, this is my political atheism, or maybe it's just I'm secretly working on behalf of the regime here, or something like this. But that is. But I think the way that you know, the thought is we're not going to change the structures. We're not going to change those things, and we will work on these on other things. You know, you have companies like Airbnb, and you know, there's sort of they're changing some of the urban regulations. You know, things like this do shift, and you know, the education system is going to probably shift at some point with online courses, and so a lot of these things look like they're too small initially, but I do think they can grow into things that will really change our society. And this is always why as a libertarian I find myself working in technology rather than politics, because in politics I find you have to convince too many people, and I can never convince enough people to agree with me. It's too hard.
We'll see about that tonight. But you said you're maybe secretly working for the regime, but can you speak about Palantir?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
It's really not so secret. It's not really very secret, is it? I mean, you're working with the CIA and the correct me if I'm wrong, but the U.S. Army and on
J.P. Morgan Chase.
J.P. Morgan, and I mean, your political agnosticism hasn't prevented you from.
Right, and that's where I was actually sort of going with this. Is it's one thing to say, okay, we're doing something else, but we're not trying to challenge the structure. But there's another thing, sort of using those technologies to actively reinforce the very structure, which is ultimately stifling creativity.
No, look, I think there are all sorts of concrete problems that we need to solve. You know, SpaceX is working with, it works with the U.S. military to help get financing to launch satellites, and on the Palantir side, I do think that there is, I do think there were some very big buildings that were blown up here in New York City, and as a libertarian, I don't think we should have had the response we did to those buildings blowing up, but you did, all the mass movements, all the consciousness raising in the world did not stop us from getting the Patriot Act. The ACLU is always good at talking about civil rights. Once something bad happens, you never get, the protections go out the window right away. And so I actually do think that there's something to be said for trying to figure out some ways to stop another attack, which will be used to curtail civil liberties a lot more. A company like PayPal could not get started in the post-Patriot Act world, because we would have been accused of money laundering in '99 to 2000. And so I do think the fact there was no technology to stop terrorism in 2001 is what has led to a far less libertarian world.
Another reason.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it.
Right. I mean, another reason why 2001 happened is because all the intelligence resources were being brought to bear disproportionately on people like me and my friends, rather than the guys who are actually going to blow something up.
Look, if Snowden has revealed anything about the NSA, it is how little technology there is, how incompetent it is. So if you have an intelligence agency where someone is downloading all the files, and it doesn't raise any suspicions whatsoever. I mean, this is much more like the Keystone Cops than Big Brother, and so we've had a world where there's been not very much privacy, but not very much security either, and I think that I think we could try to have more of both.
Is Palantir moving from Keystone Cops to Orwellian? Is that the idea?
No, we get Orwellian because of the Keystone Cops, because they know they're incompetent. They have to always do more and more. So you just have to hoover up all the data in the whole world because you have no idea what you're doing.
Let's stop this portion of the program. Thank you very much. Take some questions.